Welcome to today's training, Prosperity Algorithm. Does the name say it all? I think so, as long as we know what a prosperity algorithm means. So my name is Jason Fladlien. I'm going to break down what that is to you today. I'm going to explore 8 of the 10 factors which contribute to the algorithm, give you some insights, and then extend to you a special pre-training opportunity to unfold the prosperity algorithm together, all right? But let's start with definitions first. What is an algorithm exactly? And since this is live, yes, this is live, and because I found interaction increases the experience and the insight, tell me what you feel like an algorithm is. It's a really interesting question because we are surrounded in algorithms today. We are awash in algorithms, if you will. We get on Google, we search, the results that come back to us, an algorithm is responsible for that. We get on Amazon and we try to find a product, an algorithm is responsible for that. We get on Twitter or we get on Facebook or we get on Instagram, and an algorithm decides what information to present in front of us. And so quite simply, an algorithm is a set of processes that are executed or that are run, like you would run a program, to produce an output, right? So a bunch of different things are going on simultaneously, working in concert, maybe, but essentially it's a set of decision-making processes that's supposed to lead to a certain outcome. So the algorithm of Google is supposed to return the best, most accurate result for you. The algorithm of Amazon is supposed to help you find the products that you're looking for that are right for you. The algorithm on Facebook is supposed to curate and present to you information that is most relevant and helpful to you. That is the purpose of what an algorithm is, right? I like to extend that, though, beyond technology. Since we think in terms of technology when we think of algorithms, I like to think of anything that I want to master through algorithmic eyes. So I have cracked the webinar algorithm. Most people consider me the best in the world at it. I don't know if I am or not, but if everybody's going to say it, far be it for me to deny their wonderful conclusion on that. I do know for a fact that I'm the only living human being who's been brought in by Zoom, the platform we're on right now, the multi-billion-dollar platform, to train its users in how to do webinars. So I cracked that algorithm. I figured out what are the inputs that result in impactful, powerful, lucrative webinars. We also, as a company, Rapid Crusher, we cracked the Amazon algorithm. So we figured out the specific algorithm which is responsible for how people shop and purchase products on Amazon, and we helped over 15,000 customers be successful within this algorithm. In fact, we were so successful at cracking this algorithm that Amazon had to change its terms of service. It's kind of funny how such a small company like ours could dramatically disrupt the biggest platform on the internet in terms of economy, which is Amazon. And we've cracked the affiliate algorithm, and we hold the record in that in terms of promoting other people's products in exchange for commissions. In the internet marketing space, digital marketing space, at least we hold the record. And we figured out the set of inputs or the factors or the elements, if you will, that determine success and outcome. And so the reason I bring this up to you is because I feel like I am uniquely qualified and empowered to present to you the algorithm of all algorithms, or what I like to call the prosperity algorithm. And in fact, I started, unbeknownst to me, I started uncovering what the prosperity algorithm was all the way back in 2007 in this tiny little shed churned into an efficiency apartment where my bedroom was my living room, was my office. And because it was so small, I couldn't fit both a bed and a desk in this place. So I had to determine, do I want to sleep on a bed or do I want to work at a desk? So when I launched my career, I slept on the floor, all right? And shortly, really, it seemed like forever, but it was only a couple of years. I went from absolutely nothing to millionaire, cash millionaire, meaning I could write a check for $1 million and it would cash. Multi-millionaire soon after that. And that's when, after looking back on the last 13 plus years of that journey, I finally sat down and said, you know what? I want to break it down. I want to show everybody what the prosperity algorithm is, the 10 most important, impactful factors of that, because I believe what we need is prosperity right now. Not money, not wealth, but prosperity. That's the top line that represents everything good about wealth, about abundance, about money. And this is what I have for you here. So before we go any further, if you already know, if you're already in it, I want you to sign up for Prosperity Algorithm. And it's important that you understand why I bring this up so quickly, because the live sessions start January 18th. That's this Monday. And because you're going to do it alongside of me, I'm going to hook you up with that experience version of this training, the Prosperity Algorithms. This is going to unfold in real time. You're going to get in at $199, and that is a super duper special price because that is the we're going to do this together price. After this training has concluded, the normal price that we will be selling this is just a tick under $1,000. And so, yeah, if you want to get in, if you already know this is for you, let's just go and sign up right now. Now, the rest of this webinar, just so you know, is we're going to break down why Prosperity Algorithm, and we're going to take glimpses into 8 of these 10 topics, what I consider the best top 10 most influential elements when it comes to cracking the Prosperity Algorithm. My goal for the next hour or so of this webinar is to give you the best of each of these 8 sessions that I'm going to break into, or these 8 elements, if you will, with the hopes that, yes, I see it, I understand it, and if I want to go further, I know I can go further together. Let's talk about why Prosperity Algorithm. First of all, I already kind of touched upon it with you, is when I got in this game, I wanted to make money. And I was unabashed about that concept because I've been rich and I've been poor. And I will tell you, one is significantly better than the other. I've not seen a lot of good come out of poverty. But the problem with rich, or the problem with money, is that it is a very limited scope in and of itself that can lead you into an interesting position where you can be a millionaire and still be miserable. I've been there. And I know many people who are still there, right? So if I said, if it isn't money, what is it? So then I went to wealth. And I liked wealth a lot more. It felt better to me. And it was more whole, but it wasn't as whole as, say, abundance. So I'm like, money, in a healthy arrangement, money lives inside of wealth. Wealth lives inside of abundance. And I thought abundance was the highest level. Then I realized prosperity lives one level above that. It's the algorithm of algorithms, right? So this is why I decided it's Prosperity Algorithm. So when I went to work at figuring out and actually putting onto pen and paper out to the world in a tangible format, specifically, what is the Prosperity Algorithm? I sat down and said, what are all the factors? So just like Google has hundreds of factors which determine its relevance, all kinds of factors. I said, what are the different contributors to prosperity? And I came up with 63. And I said, of these 63, how do we group these? How do we organize these? How do we drill down? How do we find the vital few, the most leverageable, the most impactful of these 63 elements? And this is what I came up with. Prosperous Purpose, Structure of Freedom, Adaptivity and Flexibility, Tenacious Persistence, The Virtues of Adversity, Strategic Leverage, Wonderful Unfairness, Serendipity and Luck, Marketable Expertise, Perfect Imperfection. I believe if you even get 1% of these 10 elements running a little bit more efficiently in your life, the result is going to be dramatic in terms of how much it can up-level your life, how much it can improve the juice in which you can squeeze out of life, how much more of the music within you can be heard in the world outside of you. And so this has been much deliberation. Hundreds of hours of conscious thought process have went into this structure to determine these elements that are left over. So let's explore them together, if you will, okay? So let's start with the first one. And it's not a mistake that we start with purpose, because purpose is the big daddy of them all. Most people don't have any purpose. At any given time, only 3% of the population is operating within a purpose at all. And most of the purposes are kind of there, but not all the way there. So they miss prosperity. So they have purpose without prosperity. We want prosperous purpose. Now, in order to understand the power of purpose, here's the cost that a lack of purpose can have. And I think Elena Ferrante said it best. She said, the circle of an empty day is brutal. And at night, it tightens around your neck like a noose. Lack of purpose means an empty day. And not just one, it means empty day after empty day after empty day after empty day. So my guess, and you don't have to share this with me if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with me, but if you want to be open, I'm here to hear it. Who here right now, if you feel like you're living in purpose, type me. And if you're not living in purpose right now, type I, okay? And what we're going to see here in the chat, and you can't see the chat, I can, only panelists can see the chat. We set it up that way intentionally. But whenever I do any of these things, I find most people have at best a fuzzy purpose. And very few people have a very concrete purpose, a very definitive, very well thought out purpose that they are working through and in and on and towards every single day of their life, or at least most of the days of their life, right? But most of us are living and existing, but we're not purposeful. And that's okay for now. But we're going to examine why that is and what we can do about it. If you don't have purpose, nothing else is really going to help you. And everything else in prosperity algorithm is amplified as it relates and connects to purpose. So this is the thing that makes all other things run on time and with the most effectiveness, okay? So if you don't have a purpose, your first purpose is to uncover your purpose, okay? So those of you who don't have a purpose or are unclear about your purpose, I've given you your purpose. This is where you start with purpose, to uncover your purpose. From now on, if you don't have a purpose, you say, my purpose is to find my purpose. So if you and I run into each other 6 months from now and I sit down and say, hey, remember that prosperity algorithm webinar you were on? And you say, yes, Jason, of course I do. And I said, remember how I said, find your purpose? Did you? And you say, what? I didn't. I am going to be disappointed in you because you missed the most important part. And I can't help you and I want to help you. But you got to help me help you. Now, by the way, I just committed a faux pas. This is how challenging and how much thoughtfulness needs to come into here. I said, find your purpose, which is a cliche that is easy to automate in our language, but we don't want to find our purpose. We actually want to uncover our purpose because your purpose is already there. It's already inside you. We can't find it. We can't search for it out there. We have to go in here first. So we're going to talk more about that. So uncovering is your purpose. Imagine it's hiding underneath the sheets in your bed and you uncover it. You take the covers off and boom, there it is. That's your purpose. So purpose number one, find your purpose. Purpose number two is once you find your purpose, you give your heart and soul into it. All right. There's this wonderful study that's done. They looked at people that were working in the healthcare and the janitorial services. And people who showed up and thought, my purpose is to be a janitor and to, clean things. Their job satisfaction was here, right? It wasn't that high, wasn't that low. It just was, right? But those that showed up with the purpose of being, hey, I help make this facility run because if I don't keep things clean, people can die. I'm a contributor to the overall health of the people that come to this hospital. Just that slight refinement of purpose, job satisfaction went through the roof, right? So this doesn't have to be some Herculean, we're going to change the world type of stuff, right? It's just something that you can give your heart and soul into and you can really unlock the essence of it, right? That is purpose. To live without purpose is to live inauthentically. And the pain of inauthenticity is so great. It is hard to overstate the pain of inauthenticity. So most of us, we try to use willpower and determination in order to get what we want. We find usually that doesn't work. It is the most talked about, most typed up, most excited, thing that people get and want to put on Instagram and get quotes on and thumbs up, like willpower, work really hard, and determination. Usually we are using those to try to climb an uphill battle when we feel unauthentic inside. So we try to make it up with willpower. And that's just crazy talk right there. That is just almost impossible. The problem with inauthenticity is when we're not living in harmony, that's painful. We're living not in harmony, but we're not in sync. We're out of sync. And not being in your purpose is to be out of sync. And this is what causes so much mental pain and so much physical pain, so much psychological pain, so much spiritual pain is living inauthentically. So if you're living inauthentically, that's not a judgment, all right? Because I've spent more of my life living inauthentically than I have authentically, okay? It's just a state. It's neither right nor wrong. But the problem with inauthenticity is willpower doesn't help you there. Determination isn't going to help you very much. Having a good opportunity to sink your teeth into ain't going to help you if you're not feeling connected to it or connected to others. So lack of purpose puts you in this very treacherous position of being in inauthenticity. So we don't want that. I don't want that for you, okay? The prosperity of purpose, though. Here's the positive. Here's the desire. Here is the result of being on purpose and being in purpose. It has been proven scientifically you're less likely to get sick and have disease, right? So oftentimes we try to improve our health by what we put into our body in terms of food, and that's smart. But purpose is more nourishment than any sort of healthy food could ever be for the soul as well as for the body. So people in purpose live longer. They are healthier. They are more impervious to disease. One of the lesser, but yet still very valuable effects of purpose is it automates decisions. You have to make less decisions. Things happen and unfold more naturally. And the decisions that you make with less effort are more accurate. So the quality of your decisions go up. Decisions seem to be easier and more automatic, and yet at the same time, more effective. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And you live longer. Cool, right? Now, if you're not in purpose, you probably wouldn't want to live longer. Doesn't it make sense? If you're out of purpose, there's no incentive to live longer. So you could be tortured more, right? That doesn't work, right? But when you're in purpose, you want to live longer. And it's amazing how that want seems to play out. Maybe it's the cause of it. I don't know. But it is what it is, right? Now, the cost of non-purposeful living on other more basic, more day-to-day levels is it's hard to say no to things. You don't know what to say no to. Don't you feel right now that there's so many opportunities around you and you're like, oh my God, this looks good, this looks good, this looks interesting, this looks fascinating, this looks like it has merit. And guess what you're doing? You're opening yourself to all possibilities and you're being pulled in 172 directions all at the same time. How is that going to help you? In the not so distant past, the biggest challenge to prosperity used to be lack of opportunity. There just wasn't many opportunities available. They weren't easy to find. They weren't easy to tap into, right? Nowadays, we are awash in opportunity and it's killing us. We have more opportunity than we know what to do with. And the problem is if we don't have purpose, everything looks attractive. Everything can pull us towards us. If we don't have our own purpose, somebody else who has purpose can sweep us up in it. And that might be good, but I'll tell you, right? There's a reason why business people score the highest on the psychopathic test, right? So what profession has the most psychopaths? A CEO. There's a reason why. Because they're really good at sweeping up people and their purposes, but are their purposes holistic? Are they valuable to all of us? I don't know. I just don't want to put myself in that position, nor do I want you to put yourself in that position, okay? So if not that, though, there's a saying that talks about subliminal coercion. If you don't have a strong sense of self, which comes through purpose, you open yourself up to subliminal coercion. So the messaging and the market, the marketing, the media, all these little things that come into your news feeds and all these things that other people say to you, it kind of just hits you here, hits you there, pinballs you here, pushes you there, moves you over there. That's not a comfortable existence. And that's the challenge of non-purposeful living. As a result, people that are not in purpose, they suffer depression at higher rates. They suffer loneliness and disconnection to a greater degree, and they have a massive more amount of anxiety. Essentially, the way I like to put it, to really bring this home, is this. If you're living life without purpose, you're telling the universe essentially that you're not worth taking serious because you haven't come up with your purpose. Therefore, you're not serious about your existence. And the universe says, you're not serious with me. I don't want to be serious with you. Okay. It's just a thought. Can't prove it. It's just an idea. It's just a concept. It's something that I look at and say to myself, okay, why would the universe take me serious if I'm not taking me serious, right? If I haven't made this a priority, how can I expect other things to be making me their priority in a positive way, right? It's an insult, I feel. If I have been given this life and don't use it for purposeful living, right? And again, no judgments here. I speak to you because I care about you and I want to help you. And I think some of this stuff isn't being discussed and talked about, having light shined on it. And so I want to shine this light on it for you, right? But it's hard to start living your life until you first choose the type of life that you want to live. If you do this, everything else becomes easier. If you don't do this, everything else becomes harder. So let's sync up a little bit with purpose, right? Here are some of the places that you can locate purpose. By the way, caveat, disclaimer, one measly webinar will not automatically unlock for you your perfect purpose. This is a lifelong pursuit. This is something that you put some consciousness towards consistently, and you adjust it and you refine it and you dive into it and you see, ooh, what can I learn from this? And what do I know now that I didn't know before? And what am I going to learn? That kind of stuff, right? But here are some places to start flirting with purpose. All right. What are you willing to die for? Maybe that's what you could live for. What are the things that you'd be willing to put your life on the line for? You might expose some of the outer edges of your purpose there. What's the difference between being on purpose and being in purpose? This is a wonderful thought exercise because we talk about doing things on purpose, right? On purpose versus an accident. But see, I don't want to sit on top of purpose. I don't, I picture purpose as this round ball and I'm sitting on top of it when I hear the word on purpose or the phrase on purpose. If I was in purpose, inside purpose, to me that feels better. And I say, what's the difference between those two? And when I resonate more with in purpose, I get more clues in some of the ways I can make that happen or have more of that show up in my life. Switching modalities instead of visual, let's talk about what you're most harmonious with, in sync and harmony with. Think about that. What am I harmonious with and what I'm out of harmony with? Will give you clues into, I want to be in harmony as much as humanly possible. What brings me into harmony? And how can I tie up some of those loose ends and shape this clay of harmony into something that might resemble a purpose, right? My favorite way to start. Now, this isn't what we do inside a prosperity algorithm in its totality. I have a very structured model of purpose introspection, but we do warm-up exercises to warm up our purpose muscles, just like you would physical exercises if you were going on a run, right? Here's a very effective way to start uncovering purpose. In what ways are you still like your 6-year-old self? Because what I have discovered is children seem to much more easily gravitate towards their purpose without putting censors or limits or societal pressures that I've learned and taught and picked up on later in life. And very often, not always, but very often, what you were already in purpose with at 6, you have lost that synced, harmonious connection to. And we just got to recover it. But isn't that wonderful? Because again, purpose is already in you. You just got to uncover it, recover it, resync up with it. Now, instructive. Why don't most people have purpose? So hopefully this is the place where you can not judge yourself, where you can set aside judgment and reservation, okay? Because I certainly don't feel that towards you. I don't look down upon anybody who doesn't have purpose, because here's what I know about why most people don't have purpose. First of all, you're not taught. They didn't have Purpose 101 in school, right? I would have taken that class if they had it, but they didn't. There's usually no formal instruction. It's not built into society to create a situation where you look at and learn the rules of purpose, right? Another thing is you've lost your way. It happens. I've had tragedy shake me from my purpose. Early on trauma in my childhood, I couldn't think purpose. I had to think survival, right? But that's okay. If you've lost your way, then we can find it together again. That's exciting. Now think about that. Now we can go on a treasure hunt for purpose. We can go on a journey and discovery, an expedition. That sounds fun to me, right? You haven't made it a priority. And that's just the thing, right? We have millions and millions of pieces of data attacking and assaulting our senses at almost every single second. So it's hard to know what to prioritize. And if you're overwhelmed, which, hey, guess what? Everybody in COVID right now is pretty much overwhelmed. It makes it harder to figure out and prioritize. So I'm helping you hopefully understand that maybe this should be a higher priority. Because most people have a to-do list, but on their to-do list, you never find be in purpose. That's suspiciously, conspicuously absent on the to-do list, right? Now, some of you are trying, and that's awesome. Your approach just needs some tuning up, right? You just need to dial it in a little bit. And how do you do that? You work with other people and you bounce ideas off them. They bounce it off you. You take input from a variety of sources. You stress test your purpose. You say, hey, let me try this on and see if it fits any better or not, right? Here's the biggie, though, that stops most people from purpose is they're afraid of coming up short. And that fear of somehow missing the purpose or choosing the wrong thing and finding out later it wasn't your purpose, even though you devoted so much of your heart and soul into it. That is so scary for so many people that they freeze up or they run away from it. And that is understandable. And I empathize with you if that is your situation. But I will tell you what I've discovered and what we teach in Prosperity Algorithm. To search for purpose is to be in purpose, because purpose number one is to uncover purpose. So there is no possibility, my friend, of you coming up short. None, as long as you're seeking, right? There's journey and there's destination. Even if the destination isn't what you thought it would be, if the journey was wonderful, then who cares? Wonderful, because you're going to spend more time on the journey than you ever will in the destination, at least in this life, right? So wonderful. And I want to help you right size more that purpose, or to dial in more for you that purpose, or at least put you in purpose. We teach an exercise in Prosperity Algorithm where I am 100% convinced that 100% of my audience will be in purpose for at least 5 minutes the day after this session is done. Because purpose isn't something that you have to wait 10 years to experience. I am 100% confident I can put you in purpose. Now, if I put you in for 5 minutes in purpose tomorrow, what's going to happen is you're going to say, ooh, I like this. This is interesting. So you're going to naturally gravitate towards it more often. And pretty soon you're going to find yourself in purpose more often. I just got to open the door for you. You walk through it and then boom, you can take it from there. You can get in, you can enjoy all of this, because we start with purpose. And we do a deep dive with models, with exercises, with true full-on focus of what really is powerful and electrifying about purpose and how to find it and how to uncover it. See, I'm still working on that one myself, right? I can tell you, though, I am honored to be in purpose nearly every single day of my life for the last 17 years, I would say, easily, right? And so I can speak from experience, if nothing else. $199 gets you in. That is the best price I will ever offer it moving forward. It will never be offered at this price in public ever again. And so you can get started right now. That's just session one, mind you, right? Once we figure out purpose or take a look at it, then we start to look at the concept of structure of freedom. What I've discovered, all the really cool things in life, they're all paradoxical with very rare exception. It's very rare that I find an exception. The paradox is where the value is in, okay? And nothing better shows that, in my opinion, than structure in freedom. Structure seems to be the antithesis of freedom, but you can't have freedom without structure. In fact, I heard it said this way by David Brooks. He said, freedom without structure is its own form of slavery. So even though these seem to be diametrically opposed forces, they actually, on deeper examination, they actually work in perfect harmony, like a yin and a yang, right? And think about it this way. Every single one of you, whether you realize it or not, have structure. It's just very often the de facto default structure into things that can empower you. But until you understand the mechanics of structure and what positive, prosperous structure could look like, and I have some really cool models to share with you on that, it's really hard. It's really hard. Here's where structure can be dangerous, though. So this is why a lot of people resist structure or structured thinking or utilizing structure to provide freedom. Structure becomes dangerous when it becomes overly rigid. So a lot of people, they say, man, I need to put some structure in my life. The next thing you know, the tail is wagging the dog. We're not here to serve a clock or to serve a routine or to serve a schedule, right? So over rigidity. There's this concept that I talk about a lot. It's a huge theme in the prosperity algorithm, which is the zone of prosperity, which is in between excess and deficiency. So too little of structure is dangerous. Too much structure, dangerous. The goal is in between in the zone of prosperity. So purpose that provides you a living but not joy is dangerous. But no purpose is also dangerous. Prosperous purpose is where it feels good on the inside and has great things happen on the outside. That is the zone of purpose, the zone of prosperity, the zone of structure. So we don't want to become overly rigid because then we're not flexible. We're going to talk about flexibility here very shortly. Structure can create complacency. So think about it this way. You take, 1 billion people, by the way, on planet Earth do not have access to running water. Some of them have to walk miles to and from with big jugs to carry water just to drink every single day and survive, right? You pluck somebody out of that environment, you bring them over to luxury, and within 2 weeks, they're going to complain at how long it takes for hot water to come out of the pipes. It's amazing at what we can become complacent with very quickly. Fascinating. There's value in that, and then there's limitation in that. So structure is dangerous if it becomes a groove that turns into a rut, because a rut and a grave, the only difference is just a few feet. So we have to be aware of that. So let me give you some of the simpler versions of value of structure. There's much deeper ones, but they need a little bit more unpacking than the time that we have here today in order to unpack them. So let's scratch some of the surface, because I think there's some easy ways for you to be more at ease and in ease with structure to get more freedom, just from what I'm going to talk about right here, right? Let's talk about cognitive load. I love this idea. So a lot of people, tell me, how often do you hear or think of the phrase information overload, right? Isn't that a cliche at this time and day? That's its own form of structure, which has become routine. What does that mean? So everybody talks about information overload. And I find that's not a very useful phrase or a way of looking at life. First of all, I like cognitive load and looking at it through that instead, because it's not a cliche. Most people never talk about it. It's a sociological, psychological term. Behavioral scientists talk about cognitive load. So you don't have a frame of reference, but information resides inside the cognitive processes. So I find it's more useful in terms of thinking. But essentially, it's what our brain can take in and manage. And we all have a load in which we can take that in before it overwhelms us. Think about it as your brain being a computer. It has a processor which can only take in and process it and out so much data, right? Now let's look at things from a very, very, very specific viewpoint of how the world has changed so much in so little time. In 2009, 51 billion emails were sent per day. Seems like a lot, doesn't it? 2009, I'm talking 11 years ago, 12 years ago, not that long ago. Because by 2020, it went to 306 billion. Information has exponentialized. It's so fascinating to watch exponentials happen, because it just doubles and doubles and doubles, and it gets bigger, 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 bigger. And pretty soon we look back, and in a time frame that doesn't seem that long, less than one generation, our whole life has changed. So I was preparing for the contents of Prosperity Algorithm the other day, and I was thinking it like this. In the chat box right now, tell me if growing up you had less than 7 channels on your television. If that's you, type in me. Growing up, you had less than 7 channels on your television, right? And that's most people. Most of my audience, I know your demographic, because I know you very well. I try to know everything I can about my customers so I could better serve them. A majority of you had less than 7 channels growing up in your household, right? Nowadays, there are more than 7 streaming services that you can sign up for, right? You got Netflix, you got Disney Plus, you got Hulu, you got Amazon, you got Vudu. If you're into like anime, you got like Crunchyroll. And I mean, I know I'm missing some ESPN Plus. That's another one. Oh my God, I'm still missing even other ones. Peacock is on the list. So nowadays we have more streaming channels, streaming services than we used to have channels. Here's what's crazy about this. Information has increased exponentially, but our memory capacity has stayed the same. We have not increased our brain. Our brain hasn't increased in its amount of its ability to process information. We're trying to connect to the internet of life with a 14.4K modem, trying to stream 8K video, right? Trying to stream virtual reality with a 14.4 modem. Our hardware is out of date. Our software is out of date. It's a problem. And it's a problem none of us could prepare for, because it happened before we were even aware of it. We can't function in day-to-day life anymore with the old ways. It's impossible. We need a new structure. So I present to you a prosperous structure, where we can figure out how to filter out those billions and billions of pieces of data we now consume. We consume more data in 1 hour a day than the entirety of humanity used to consume 300 years ago. That different. But if you took a person today and a person 300 years ago and put them in a lineup, other than the clothing they wore, you couldn't distinguish one from the other. So we've essentially stayed the same in terms of what we can do biologically, but the whole world's changed in front of us. So the benefits of prosperous structure, let me sell you on structure, especially the prosperous kind. It builds confidence. People always talk about confidence. Confidence this, confidence that. I want to get confident. I say to them, how do you become confident? They say, get good at something. Well, how do you get good at something? Well, I got to be confident first, Jason, in order to try it. Okay, wait, that's chicken egg thinking. That's not going to work, right? We can get confidence as a byproduct within structure. Structure automatically creates more confidence accidentally than what people try to obtain on purpose. Okay, so it does build confidence. It reduces the need for willpower and determination. Again, you don't have a lot of willpower to repeat the things in your day-to-day habits that you don't like. That's natural. It's automated. We want that type of automation to help us in more prosperous ways. Structure creates momentum. And believe it or not, this is another wonderful, juicy paradox of life. It enhances spontaneity and creativity. It enhances spontaneity and creativity. We need it in order to be creative. Lack of this is lack of creativity. So structure actually enhances free thinking and creativity. And it gives you things to look forward to. Isn't that wonderful? Where you're like, ooh, this is going to happen. I get to look forward to this. Fascinating. So the right types of structure automatically, and this is superficial stuff. This isn't even the true end result of being in a prosperous structure and putting more prosperous structures into your life. Some of these are super easy. Let me give you the flip side though. See, this is why I get paid the big bucks, and that's not a flex. People come to me because I have ways of looking at the world that are different than they're used to, and that helps them get new results that they couldn't get before. Here's one such idea to posit to you, right? Schedule your chaos. Right now, most of you, you're a victim of chaos. You feel helpless to chaos. Tell me if I'm right or not, right? It seems like chaos comes out of nowhere and attacks you. It overwhelms you. It's unexpected. That's the very nature of chaos, right? So unfortunately, your only relationship with chaos is a victimized relationship. It is a powerless relationship. You know how you take power back over chaos? How you create a new relationship with chaos? Because chaos, when properly harnessed, leads to some of the biggest power that you could ever utilize, right? You schedule your chaos. You say from 3:02 p.m. to 3:18 p.m. tomorrow, I am going to be in chaos. And you show up ready for chaos. And now all of a sudden, chaos doesn't run your life. You're starting to run chaos. Chaos doesn't use you anymore. You use chaos. And that's just a little cool hack. That's just a little trick, right? I'm a tactics broker too. I try to give you what you want and try to give you what you need, right? What you want, though, are these cool little tricks. I got a bag full of them. I got bags full of them, right? And so this is just a little bit of the tasting of what's available on Prosperity Algorithm. But it's a really interesting way of how we can harness and utilize some of these levers of prosperity. The power of structure is it allows you to more bravely face the unknown. Unknown is scary. And structure helps us bravely face it. I heard it put this way. You'll be too well trained to panic. And boy, isn't that a wonderful thing to just do it and not have to worry about it because you're so structured in the sense of prosperously structured that it's not a matter of fear. It's not a matter of worry. It's just, this is the thing that we do and we're going to do it and we're going to see what happens. And I want to see what happens for you. And I want you to employ some of these different types of structures. These structures are missing in most experience. And I came from chaos where there was drug users in and out of our house at all hours of the day, crystal meth users that would stay up 3, 4, 5 days at a time getting high and then all come crashing down. As a young child, I had to maneuver through that environment and somehow get by and try to live from a very young age. I had no structure what to speak of. So most of my life, I lacked structure so bad. It was so damaging to me that I had to go extra hard just to figure out the most basic things that most people take for granted when it comes to structure. And as a result, I have some new approaches I believe that you can't find anywhere else to try on. Well, let's try them on. Let's see what happens. Last chance to get in at $199. It does start on Monday. What's today? Thursday, right? So it's coming up very soon, right? Let's talk about number 3, the third session in Prosperity Algorithm, which is Adaptivity, Flexibility. I just went crazy in on this today. I was really punching up the material for the prosperity algorithm in this section, and I was feeling so good by the time that this was done that the kids were looking at me weird because they could hear me downstairs, and I was not even noticing it, but I was like, yeah, I was whooping and hollering and making noise because one of my superpowers is having to be adaptive and flexible. So let me put it to you this way. We talk with comfort zones. Get out of your comfort zone. You've heard that saying enough times, it's nauseating, Like, what does that even mean? How is that even helpful? But a lot of people think in terms of comfort zones. And, all growth resides outside of your comfort zone. That's a famous saying, all right? And here's the only bone I have to pick with this thought process of comfort zones. To me, it feels like it's a very limiting way of looking at it. Comfort as a zone that you somehow are in and trying to push out of. And let me try to prove this to you, okay? Because generally, what can you do with a comfort zone? You can stretch it, you can widen it, right? You can push through it. But is that the only way you can manipulate comfort? Because generally speaking, it's the devil right? Even things that are not very enjoyable, you tend to stay with because the cost of switching is too great for you. So how do we switch comfort so we can become more comfortable with success than we are with failure, right? How do we do that? So let's talk about hacking comfort. So a comfort zone is a far too comfortable way of looking at it. Isn't that ironic? Isn't that interesting? I find that fascinating, right? The very term that we use to disabuse the idea of comfort is itself a comfortable term. Fascinating, right? So comfort is way more than just a zone. We can flip comfort. We can make a polarity response to comfort. So what used to be uncomfortable automatically becomes comfortable. And what used to be comfortable automatically becomes uncomfortable, right? So I can take this feeling of comfort and make you more comfortable with success than failure. If I can make you more uncomfortable with mediocrity, as a byproduct, success automatically becomes more compelling for you, right? This is the way in which I try to employ prosperous thinking to the idea of being adaptive and flexible. Here's the normal ways in which you're taught to be adaptive and flexible. They ain't working for you, because if they were, then you would have already got the results. So what needs to be done instead? What's an alternative viewpoint that we can explore to give you a different feeling, a different association, potentially a different outcome? So this is how I've come to think about comfort. And by the way, this is the simplest, superficial level of this whole idea of adaptability and flexibility, right? But it's an interesting starting point. I like to think of comfort as a tesseract. Most of you're like, what's a tesseract? Tesseracts are fascinating. Let me show you a tesseract. Imagine if all you did was start to think of your sense of comfort in this right here, a tesseract. What's beautiful about a tesseract? It's 4 dimensions. 4 dimensions. So is comfort a 4-dimensional, moving, living, fluid type of concept? I think it is. I think at all different times you're becoming more comfortable with certain things, more uncomfortable with other things, and that is so much more Morpheus and such more has ability to do so many things with it than just a 2D zone that might be able to be stretched a little bit, all right? Believe it or not, just starting to change your perspective on things such as comfort zones and what you're comfortable with, you will show up with different intention. If you buy into what I'm saying right now, I guarantee you something's going to happen in your near future where you say, whoa, I flipped comfort just like that. I didn't have to stretch a comfort zone. I didn't have to push against it. I understand more the 4-dimensional qualities of life, not the 2-dimensional qualities. Very, very, very powerful, okay? But maybe that's kind of weird right now. So let's talk about the other side, where people get stuck, where they are not flexible, where they're not adaptable, where even if they're miserable, they're comfortable in their misery, so they don't know what else to do other than what they do, right? Is generally the reason why people get stuck or why they're not flexible or adaptive is because they want certainty. So they trade in prosperity for certainty. And here's the biggest problem with that. It doesn't exist. It's impossible. There is no certainty in this world, unfortunately. No, nothing that you could put yourself into and be like, I want certainty. Okay, good luck with that. It's unfortunate because we're in some ways programmed to seek certainty. It's a survival mechanism. But if you seek certainty, you do so at the expense of openness, at the expense of curiosity, at the expense of acceptance, at the expense of learning, and at the expense of growth. There's a cognitive bias where people will trade in a small amount of risk for no risk, even though there are other things that they could lessen in terms of risk. To get something from 70% risky to 20% risky, they're like, nah, I want to get something from 1% risky to 0% risky. That's how we're hardwired. So it's our job, if we want to be prosperous, to consider other ways of interacting with the world other than just the equipment that we showed up on this planet Earth with, right? So in flexibility, by the way, this is fascinating. Inflexibility is the commonality of all trauma. I don't like to use universal qualifiers. We talk about universal qualifiers in prosperity algorithm, words like all, every, none, never, because those are almost never true. It's a very black and white way of thinking about the world, but this is the exception right here. Flexibility, I have discovered so far at least, is the commonality in all trauma. And generally speaking, these are the three responses when you're in trauma: fight, flight, or freeze. You either fight, which is usually not a powerful, prosperous response. You run away with flight. That's not very prosperous either. Most often, though, which is why I find this fascinating, people talk in terms of fight and flight. Most people don't even include freeze. Freeze is the most dominant response. People don't usually fight or flight. They freeze up. A majority of time, that's the default response. And that's a lack of flexibility, being frozen. It's very scary, but like post-traumatic stress disorder, which I've been diagnosed with and I've had experience with, I freeze. When things get overwhelming to me, I just lock up. I can't really do anything. It's scary. It is a mental prison that is very, very scary, that has no key to get out of when you're in it, right? If you want to be prosperous, if you want to thrive, you need more options. This isn't going to cut it. Fight, flight, freeze. These are all reactionary options. We need responsive options. So we need more flexibility. We need more adaptability. Lack of flexibility. Here's the result. Here's what happens. And here's where most of us are right now. Most of society, this is how they're interacting with their world, which limits their ability to be in prosperity, is lots of us filter. And there's many areas where I still struggle with this, and I'm a work in progress, just like anybody. Just because I'm the teacher or the channeler of the prosperity algorithm doesn't mean that I have perfected it. There is no such thing. It's always things are changing, and it's great to be in with them and change with them. That's wonderful, right? But most people filter. They look at only seeing the downside. In fact, biologically speaking, we're programmed to be more aware of the downside and less aware of the possible upside. So the less flexible you are, the more likely you are to engage in the kind of filtering that only shows you a very limited amount of options. And usually happiness is outside of those options. Another challenge with lack of flexibility is the catastrophizing, fixating on worst case scenarios or best case scenarios even. And when usually it's somewhere in between. The joke is this: anybody who writes a book, generally they have two thoughts and only two thoughts. It's either going to be a massive home run or it's going to be the worst book ever written. Which is funny because within those two catastrophic and extremes, positive and negative extremes, if you will, right? 99.99999% of all results come out. Usually what happens is neither one of those things even come close. It's a book that's marginally okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's a start, right? But when people are inflexible, they are not okay with that. So therefore they don't get things done, or if they do get them done, they don't enjoy them for what they are. They don't honor them. And then they're out of prosperity, not in prosperity. Black and white thinking, enemy of the modern human being. We are so overwhelmed with this concept of black and white thinking where I'm either a success or I'm a failure. It's either good or bad. It's either positive or negative. It's either, communism or capitalism, right? To me, there's so many flavors. A computer has 256 different colors that it can produce. 256 colors, and that's a stupid computer. What to speak of the visual spectrum of color in the entirety of the galaxy? It's infinite. Yet most of us generally seek it's either this or that style of thinking, and that will create inflexibility, right? Most decisions aren't right decisions or wrong decisions. They're just decisions that need to be made. The result of lack of flexibility is learned helplessness, where you just say, I'm out of power. I have nothing that I can do to help me in this situation. Or something bad happens, and then you don't know how to pick up the pieces and move on. That's lack of flexibility. Conclusion jumping. Believe it or not, I don't think this gets enough focus. But oftentimes we're trying to seek a conclusion when something happens. We try to find meaning too fast in general. And there's this beautiful, wonderful experience of just observation. Imagine if you saw a sunset and instead of just observing it, you tried to say, okay, a sunset means this. It means the end of the day, and it means that tomorrow is going to start. And you're already jumping to conclusions, and you're not just observing the beauty of the sunset. We do that in all areas of our lives. I do that just as much as anybody else does. This is why I need more help than most people. This is why I had to create the prosperity algorithm, because I'm going to be student number one of this stuff, right? But conclusion jumping is, unfortunately, today, more than ever, we live with so little observation. But to truly be in the now, which is one of the most beautiful places to be in, you have to be in observation. And being in observation is such a powerful state to create and unlock prosperity. And as I mentioned earlier, I got ahead of myself. Prosperous thought, often there are no right decisions or wrong decisions. There are usually just decisions that need to be made. And I'm going to put this on you now. I don't believe it's a right decision or a wrong decision for you to sign up. It's just a decision that you're going to make, right? It's just a decision. It's not right if you buy, or it's not right if you don't buy. It's not wrong if you buy. It's not wrong if you don't buy. It's none of those things. It's not black and white. It is a decision that you can make. You make the decision, you see what happens. You bring that attitude in, and it's going to be amazing how much more you can get out of not just this investment, but pretty much all the types of investments that you have to make in your life. Last chance at $199. This does start Monday. We're going to get cooking. It's going to be fun, right? I want you in. Number 4, I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit. Tenacious persistence. I want you to imagine that you had the following obstacle handling mindset. If you had, so listen very closely. I want you to imagine the following. When you were encountering a challenge or something that was trying to hold you back, imagine you thought about it this way. You looked at it and you said, I'll go over it. I'll go under you. I'll go through you. If it's locked, I'll pick that lock. If I got no other option, I will drip sweat on it until it erodes into sand, and then I will walk over it. If you had that type of obstacle handling mindset, how successful do you think you would be? Answer, very successful. That's the tenacity of persistence that I've discovered in prosperity algorithm. And here's what's wonderful about this. Without purpose, you can't have that. With purpose, you can have that, provided you know the process. See, every single one of you have tenacity within you. You have that persistent tenacity within you. I'm going to show you how you can use it and utilize it. I'm going to install it so you could practically call it on demand. Because if any of you have been with me for any amount of time, now some of you are new, so welcome. Nice to meet you. I hope this is the start of a wonderful relationship that we can continue on, because a lot of you, some of you at least, I don't know if a lot of you, but some of you have been with me since 13 years ago. Before the kids, before the wife, right? Before the dogs. It was us. So you know this when I speak of this. You have seen me demonstrate firsthand this sort of attitude. I'll go over it. I'll go under it. I'll go through it. I'll pick the lock. I'll dig a hole through the earth and end up on the other side and sneak in the back way if I have to, right? This is an attitude. It's an attitude that can be elicited because it already exists inside of you, and then you can step into it. You can leverage it, and you can use it, right? Powerful stuff. Now, I spent a lot of time with persistence because persistence wasn't an option for me. It was mandatory if I wanted to be alive. And there are many times in my life growing up with craziness that I grew up in, I didn't expect to be alive past 25. That was kind of the attitude I had from the environment that I went in. But when I said, I got to go, I better find a way to make it through this, I had to tap into persistence. And then I went through the refinement process and the nuance of it. And I wanted to understand the deeper levels of this persistence. And here's what I discovered. One of the wonderful things I discovered about persistence and the state of persistence is it goes hand in hand with compassion. Self-compassion can be like a weapon. And I mean that in a good way. When many people hear compassion and self-compassion, it typically conjures up these images of like Pollyanna, kumbaya style. I mean, for me, there's some hippies in there, right? That self-compassion, it gets associated with sorts of all this other kind of stuff, right? But imagine compassion as a weapon. It's such a powerful weapon. It can be utilized very effectively as a weapon of persistence. And let me demonstrate this to you if I could. I was tenacious without compassion, but I was tenacious and prosperous when I also employed compassion. Okay? Prosperous compassion. If you feel worthy of the endeavor, the task is already half finished. So many of us spend so much time doing things that we don't feel worthy about, and then it's no wonder we struggle with those things. That's called intelligence. You're supposed to struggle with the things that you don't feel worthy of, right? But that's unfortunate because you are more worthy than you even know. And that's a big part of what we're going to work on in Prosperity Algorithm is reclaiming your worth. That's either been robbed from you or that you somehow robbed yourself out of. And we're going to recover that, right? But if we can pick these endeavors that we feel worthy about and really align ourselves so we can understand that we are worthy of those things, it's amazing how easy it is to then be persistent towards those things. Because I will tell you this, there is one thing I can absolutely guarantee that's going to happen to you in the next 12 months. As you move forward in your purpose and in your passion, you will encounter many obstacles, not just one. These obstacles will oftentimes feel never ending. That's because they are. But if you feel worthy of the endeavor, then the obstacles, they're very, very minimal compared to the worthiness to move forward, right? Prosperous compassion heals the wounds of setbacks and unexpected bumps in the roads because there will be unexpected bumps in the roads. But here's the problem. Most of us today, at least, because we're not tapping into the prosperity algorithm, most of us today, we get hurt and we're done. We don't have a way to heal. So the first cold night, the first hot day, the first unexpected slap against the head, and we're over with. We're done. We're done. Compassion helps us heal those wounds. So we can say, ouch, that hurt. I wasn't expecting that, but now I feel better so I can pick myself up and continue to go on. See, here's something that I would love for you to chew on for a little bit and really set with and really invite into your life as a consideration, all right? A lot of people want to get rid of fear, or they want to push fear down somehow, right? Or they want to, I don't know what they want to do with fear. They want to run from it, or they want to somehow build up enough confidence so fear doesn't enter the equation. That is one way to go about it. I found that's usually the least effective way to do it. Instead, what I like to do is take fear and put them in the passenger seat of my journey, right? There's fear. Fear's still here, but it's not driving the vehicle anymore. It doesn't have its hands on the wheels. I see you, fear. I acknowledge you. I identify with you, even though I don't want to. But here you are, and you can sit in the passenger seat. You're going to go along with me. You're going to be there, but I'm going to put you in the passenger seat. Because compassion allows you to not bring in judgment and inner criticism. If you talk to your friend like you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have that friend, right? It's funny how we make exceptions for ourselves. We're nicer to everybody else than we are to ourselves. And that is costly because it doesn't allow compassion to come in. And compassion is needed to heal as we run into these challenges, these traumas, these adversities, and we achieve persistence, tenacity through them. Here's an irrefutable fact. Anyone on this webinar right now in this present moment is incredibly persistent, whether you realize it or not. You are absolutely a living specimen of persistence, whether you know it or not. Because there's millions of ways you could have been dead by now. Somehow, some way, you have been able to live every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year of your life. Your stubborn little heart keeps beating. It's pitter patter, pitter patter. It refuses to stop. Right? You already are persistent. We're going to just leverage that, utilize that, tap into that. We're going to magnify that. We're going to channel that through. And we're going to do that in Prosperity Algorithm. See, in Prosperity Algorithm, when we hear sky's the limit, we think, hardly. The sky's a nice beginning because it goes way beyond that. I want that for you. I want you to sign up at Prosperity Algorithm. And if any of you ever been on my webinars, you know how tenacious I am. I'll go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours sometimes if I feel like I can serve and help somebody. And the time won't feel like 8 hours. It'll feel like 8 seconds or 8 minutes. I won't understand time anymore. And all this is kind of wrapped up, and it makes sense once you get into Prosperity Algorithm. Now let's talk more about adversity, because tenacity of persistence and adversity go hand in hand. Now I titled this session very deliberately, very purposefully, The Virtues of Adversity. Because to me, adversity is a wonderful, amazing thing. I didn't always understand that, but nowadays I know better. Here's some of the reasons why. First of all, Albert Einstein said adversity introduces a man to himself. You don't know who you are until you know how you handle adversity or how you respond to adversity. That's when you find out truly who you are. And that's, again, don't hate that person. Don't judge that person. Accept that person. Acknowledge that person. But isn't that wonderful that adversity introduces us to ourselves? Oh, that's where I'm at right now. That's how I'm representing myself and my spirit and my soul and who I am in my essence. Oh, okay, interesting. Good to know, right? Because we can turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. That's what adversity allows us to do, to take that stumbling block and say, thank you, let's make it a stepping stone. The beautiful thing about adversity is it gives you the ability to ask for help. Early on in my life with the chaos that I grew up in, I couldn't ask for help. I had to be the care provider. I had to be the parent to the parents as a child, right? So this was one of the hardest things for me to do, is learn how to properly ask for help and feel comfortable asking for help and realizing that there's a very prosperous, all-win, empowering way of help, of getting help, right? But for most of us, our ask for help muscles have atrophied. We don't use them very often, or we use them incorrectly. So imagine lifting weights, but not lifting them properly. What would happen? You would get hurt. Imagine lifting weights without a spotter and lifting too much weight, and it falls on your neck and it crushes and it kills you, right? So that's oftentimes people are begging for help in the wrong sort of way, and it's no wonder they don't get it. But more often than that, people are too scared and too timid to speak up for themselves and to admit they need help, or they're too afraid that they're putting too much burden on somebody else when they ask for help, right? The refinement of this is none of that is true. In fact, asking for help done properly with prosperity is one of the most beautiful acts that you can bestow on yourself and upon others, right? But because I had so much trouble asking for help, I had to develop a strategic model for it. Isn't that funny, right? Nothing came easy to me in this way. So I had to read books on it. I had to study programs on it. I had to fill up journals and reflect and introspect on it. And then I had to stress test it in the public. And then because I love teaching and I love coaching and I love training, I had to see if it worked for others, right? Fascinating. Here's the thing about adversity. There is always a manufactured component to it. Interesting. What does that mean? It means this, that a part of it is imagined. A part of all adversity is imagined. It's in your head. It's not actually true. It's a boogeyman in the closet that doesn't exist, but still scares you, right? Sometimes I have found all of your adversity is imagined, or all of your perceived adversity, or all of my perceived adversity was imagined. Interesting. and I could gently let it go. It didn't have to weigh me down anymore. It could serve as a school for me as opposed to a burden, right? And here's the funny thing. You want to get richer? You want to have more money? You want to be wealthier? You will have more adversity then. So if you are not prepared to handle the adversity you have right now and churn that into something wonderful, more money is going to create even more problems for you. As the famous philosopher Notorious B.I.G. said, right? Mo money, mo problems. That is an absolute certainty. You will increase your adversity when you increase your money, which is why some of you right now aren't making any money. You're smart that way. You are smart because you couldn't handle the additional adversity that it would bring on. So thank God you're not making more money. But if you build those adversity muscles, if you can utilize adversity and turn it into opportunity and empowerment, right? Then all of a sudden the doors to money making become a lot easier to open, and the floods of money come in instead of the trickles come in. The virtues of adversity, they allow you to exercise courage. That's what's wonderful about adversity. You get the ability to try to be courageous. I love that. Even if I don't step up, I had the opportunity at least. Without adversity, there would be no opportunity to be courageous. Adversity creates that character. It develops that character. It allows you to understand, hey, this is what I need to focus on now. It presents an opportunity for growth. It's hard to grow without adversity. It's almost impossible for most people. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to have catastrophe and fires in our life that we fight at all times. That's not what I'm talking about. It just means the adversities, the biggest growth I've ever made in my life have came from properly handling adversities with compassion, with love, with tenderness, and with prosperity. And again, provides a chance to heal. A lot of things, if you tear them down, they heal stronger, right? A lot of things, you might miss the deeper meanings and lessons in life if you first didn't have some of those initial adversities to really have to bring them home. It's wonderful. Without adversity, I'd have never been a monk. If I'd have never been a monk, I would have never been a musician. If I would have never been a musician, I would have never been a marketer because I had to learn how to market my music. If I would have never been a marketer, I would not be in front of you here today. Without adversity, without the very specific adversity that was so overwhelming that I renounced material life and became a monk for 3.5 years of my life. That's the type of adversity that I had to deal with. Without that, I would not be here with you today. I shudder to think of any other option other than the option that I have through adversity. So there's adversities in your life right now that we can help heal you from. And there's adversities in your life right now that we can transmute into the energy that can create prosperity. And I'll take any adversity that you come in, right? Without judgment. I know adversity. You bring your adversity to me and I will empathize with you. I will be warm to you. I will connect with you, right? But I will not allow your adversity to hold you prison. Hold you in a prison yourself that doesn't allow you to get to prosperity. I want to give you the keys to unlock the iron bars of adversity and turn those iron bars. We're going to melt those down. We're going to build a bridge to prosperity with them. Does that sound good to you? $199, that's it. Less than 2 Benjamin Franklins get you in. Starts Monday, January 18th. That's not that far from now. I'm excited. Let's talk about leverage. This one will not make many people's lists. If you read all sorts of personal development books and self-help books, of which I have a love-hate relationship with, they will talk about and flirt with some of these other topics. They will generally talk about other things that didn't make my list of the prosperity algorithm, but very rarely do they talk about leverage. And I think leverage is one of the greatest factors that all of us can use. And it's one of the most misunderstood things. You know, the value of something increases the more scarce it becomes. Because strategic leverage is so scarce, just understanding some of the most basic, simplest forms of strategic leverage can massively improve your prosperity, your well-being, your happiness. So what is strategic leverage? Let's define it. Strategic leverage is just simply getting more out of what you already have. And you have a lot more than you think you do. So most of us First of all, here's the problem I have with self-help. Most of it is predicated on fixing yourself or on improving yourself, right? You don't improve the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is what it is, right? You are perfect, believe it or not. I know it sounds preposterous. You are perfect exactly who you are. But if the Mona Lisa is covered in dirt and is hidden in a corner, that's what we need to work around, right? And so a lot of people, what they do is if they feel inadequate or if they feel less than themselves or if they have to feel like they have to fix themselves or improve themselves, right? They seek from without. They go looking for things. They go searching for things, which thank God they do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. So part of that is needed in order to find the doors to knock on and open. But the real leverage comes from within. And there are so many things you already have that are being underutilized. What's wonderful is, again, you recover them, you tap back into them. You don't have to create them. You don't have to acquire them. You don't have to go and find them, right? There's so much that you already have, right? I always do this. When I talk with clients and they're struggling with something, I'll say, listen, is this the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life? And some of them will say, yes, believe it or not, and they're liars. Some of them will say, well, what do you mean? Some of them will say, no, right? But I'll say it to them in a very simple term that all of you can relate to. There was a time in your life where you could not walk, you could not talk, you couldn't even go to the bathroom. You sat in your own waste, waiting helplessly for somebody to change you, right? Yet without an instruction manual, most of you didn't have very good teachers that taught you this. Nobody taught this to you formally. You somehow figured out the physics of walking at a very early age that the greatest programmers in the world can't build a machine to properly do yet, right? That's already inside you. That creativity, that ability to solve problems, that ability to be persistent, that ability to conquer things which are just impossible right now to reproduce artificially with the strongest computers in the world, right? Let's tap more into that. That's strategic leverage. We can apply this to all sorts of situations. You want to talk about problem solving? People say you got to lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Yeah, you can. Give it salt. Put apple juice in the water. Warm up the water. Sometimes the horse doesn't drink the water because it's too cold. It's unpalatable, right? All of these things are veterinarian approved. If a horse is dying of thirst, do you think somebody says, well, he's going to die, right? No, they figure out a way to get that horse some water. That is strategic leverage. Somebody says, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Great. Give me a metal detector. Give me a strong magnet. I'll give you the needle. People say, he can sell ice to Eskimos. Of course. What do you think they make igloos out of? Right? Imagine a poor Eskimo freezing out there in the cold who doesn't have time to build his own igloo, and you pull up with an ice truck and you say, I got blocks. You want to buy them? And he says, yes, I do. Thank God you came along to sell me this ice as an Eskimo, right? Everybody else is saying, no, you can't sell ice to Eskimos. Or they think it's somehow a trick, right? They miss the service. They miss the leverage. One of my favorite quotes in this lifetime of mine goes like this. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the entire world. That's Archimedes for you, right? He meant that literally, by the way. He meant that in a physical sense. He mathematically drew it out, like literally a lever, one of the simple machines that are invented that predate any machines that we've built today. A lever is one of those simple machines, right? So give me a lever long enough and I shall move the world. So leverage, strategic leverage, gives you a tremendous amount of power with the least amount of effort. One way to look at leverage is to understand every disadvantage has within it an equal or greater advantage. You have fear? Awesome. We can use it. You know how powerful fear is? Fear is so powerful. So let's leverage some of that power of fear. You say, Jason, I get easily distracted. Fantastic. I'm going to distract you with the beautiful things and the marvels in this world that can lead you to prosperity. If you're distracted by more holistic, more valuable things, all of a sudden, more of you starts to show up in the world. Let's not get mad at distraction. Let's utilize distraction, right? People say, Jason, I procrastinate. I say, fantastic. Let's start procrastinating on your limiting behaviors. You can get around to those things that keep you small later. Right now, we got bigger things to do. I'm going to take your procrastination and I'm going to use it to give you an advantage. Every single thing can be applied this way, though. This is leverage. This is leverage. One of the single greatest levers that I employ, to me, it's my greatest lever, is perspective shift. I gave you a perspective shift earlier. I had you look at it through the eyes of a child, right? Another perspective shift is to look at the problem as already solved and work backwards. It's amazing how if you run things backwards instead of forward, how you see things that you otherwise wouldn't see. Chunking things down. So in a book called Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg, it's a fascinating book. He talks about, I couldn't floss my teeth. I never flossed my teeth. So what I started doing, he said, was flossing just one tooth. He made it so simple to do that he did it. And then he felt foolish for not doing more while he was already there. So we can take anything that looks overwhelming to you and we can chunk it down and we can zoom in on one small part of it. And pretty soon it will feel more silly not to do it than to do it. And then we solve some of these lesser issues that are preventing you and locking you out of prosperity. See it through the eyes of a child. Children have more to teach us than we have to teach them. It is a fascinating perspective to take on, one that I utilize all the time. Curiosity instead of worrying about being right and wrong, just being curious instead. I've modeled children to figure out how to do that. And I will teach you curiosity through the eyes of a child in prosperity algorithm. See, we're programmed to observe what is there and want to add more to it. But a strategic lever is to what can be removed, negation, not what can be added. So very often we look at what we can remove, which gives us more space, gives us more breathing room, automatically decreases our demands and allows us to operate further, right? What can be removed? Well, if you're walking around with 100 pounds of weight on your shoulders, let's take that off before we do anything else, okay? Are you cool with that? Because most of you, 100 pounds, you're walking around with way more than that. Let's make whatever it is you're dealing with feel insignificant. We can always do that, right? I'll give you an example. A lot of people don't think they can be a millionaire. There are 7.8 billion people on this planet, and you're telling me you can't find 1,000 of them to spend $1,000 with you? That's $1 million. Doesn't that seem insignificant now? 1,000 people paying you 1,000 out of 7.8 billion people, right? Crazy, huh? Leverage is that immediate level up to start the momentum with the prosperity algorithm. That's what I love about leverage. It can deliver for you that short-term win, that immediate improvement, which then really kind of brings you in to be like, okay, now I'm ready to go further with what we're learning in prosperity algorithm, okay? I got 2 more for you. Before I go on, though, if you haven't signed up yet, let's sign up now. It's $199. We are starting on Monday. So get in right now. By the way, there is no fancy sales page for this. It's just an order form. There's no countdown timer on this, but I will tell you very clearly that this expires Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. That's Los Angeles time. As soon as Monday morning, West Coast LA time hits, this offer is done. We just didn't have time to build all that fancy marketing stuff. So in lieu of that, instead, we just gave you a huge discount. Let's make it together. That's what I want to have happen. That's why I love to. This is why I discount it here as opposed to do it later. You would think, when it's already recorded and we give the recordings out and we sell that, which is what we'll do with prosperity algorithm, that we would charge less than the live experience. I flip that around. I give you a discount for being there with me live because I feel like we created together, and I reward that because I love that feeling, and I want to reward that to you. $199 is all it is. Let's talk about unfairness. Wonderful Unfairness. It's a fascinating study of life that a lot of people have gotten backwards for whatever reason, right? Unfairness. But if you don't have a plan to manage and understand and look at and realize how you relate to unfairness, it's going to be hard to live this life in prosperity. And let me, with all the care and love in the world, share with you some truly heartbreaking stuff, right? If this is too much for you, I recommend that for the next minute or two that you mute it or set aside, because this is heartbreaking. This is sad. It truly is a tragedy and a travesty in this world on some of the depths of suffering and pain that exist. But here's just a small fragment of the cruel injustices of the world. There are over 150 million orphans. Motherless, fatherless, right? Isn't it crazy how there are people in this world who try to conceive and have children and they can't do it? Well, just down the street, there are kids that have no parents, and those two somehow or another didn't get connected and lined up. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death in the world. And that's tragic. That's heartbreaking. But it is what it is. Over 1 billion people don't have access to water, something most of us take for granted on a daily basis. And when a kid writes to Santa, you know what the most requested item is on their wish list? It's a dad, right? So many of us aspire to be this wonderful, amazing leader in this world or this world changer, put the dent in the universe, right? But for many people, it's too much to even just be a dad, not even a great dad, just a dad, right? And that's heartbreaking. And that's sad. And it's so unfair that the world is this way. Now, I used to get indignant about this, righteous indignation, as I call this. I used to really upset me. Some people, they hear this stuff and it overwhelms them. Other people, they feel a lot of guilt around this because I have these things and these people don't have these things. And then they bring in guilt, right? Guilt is the enemy of prosperity, unfortunately. The cost of righteous indignation, though, this is how I responded to these atrocities for most of my life. I used to get very angry. I used to want to go and fix these injustices. And then I would further delude myself into believing that this anger was somehow a useful state. I'm going to use the power of this anger and get all angry and then help right these wrongs, right? I'm going to get really upset about this. I'm going to go out there and change it. Okay. Now, earlier I mentioned universal qualifiers. I'm about to make another one. It's so rare that I make, especially when I'm purposeful in my thinking, this universal qualifiers where I use words like always and never and things like that, right? But let me do this. Let me make a universal qualifier right now. I have never, with zero exception, I have never found a situation where anger was the most empowering state for achieving prosperity. The problem with anger is it has deleterious effects. It certainly is very powerful. It can definitely motivate you and put you in motion. A lot of people have been single-handedly pushed into accomplishing great things through anger, but it tends to poison your insides, tends to eat away at you from the insides, unfortunately. And I've discovered that a little bit of repatterning here allows me to tap into as great, if not greater, power and energy without the drawbacks, without the side effects, the deleterious effects that anger has. See, whenever I've employed more positive states, I've always gained more prosperity and I've always felt better, right? If I want to fix the injustices in the world, impossible, by the way, but if I wanted to attempt to fix the impossible, doing so through a state of empowerment as opposed to anger is going to get me a better result and it's going to make me feel better. And that's the challenge. Most people, though, they use unfairness somehow wrecks them because they can't handle it. They get angry over it. They have guilt over it, or they pretend it doesn't exist. And then when life becomes unfair to them, because listen, life very soon is going to be unfair to you. Okay? If you're around in the next year, you will experience bitter unfairness in your life at some point in time. For some of you, it will happen in the next 24 hours. Right? And it can get you, or you can accept it, acknowledge it, and move towards prosperity. See, carrying the weight of unfairness on your shoulders will cause you to fail. It'll cause you to fall. You know that thing about Atlas carrying his world on his shoulders? That's lighter than the weight and burden of unfairness, right? If you feel things are unfair in your life, they very well may be. But is that useful to you? Generally, victimhood and unfairness go hand in hand. So if you feel like things have been unfair to you, it's not going to change it. They're still going to be unfair to you. But now you have other issues and problems that you're inviting in alongside that. If you're upset about unfairness in others, in the world, if you feel guilty because you have something somebody doesn't have, you are now carrying a burden around that's going to make it harder for you to move into prosperity. Right? So there's a lot of ways which we deal with this. And most people don't address this because it's such a thorny, such an overwhelming, such a scary issue. They don't know how to approach it with compassion, right? But if you don't have a conscious plan of how you're going to navigate through this world, which is completely unfair, if you don't have a conscious plan, it's a dangerous existence, my friend. And I tell you that with all the care and the love in the world. So what can we do about it? Let me give you a little taste of what you can do about it. Here's what you can make fair. You can't make the world fair. It's not supposed to be fair. You will lose that game. You're going up against God, and God will beat you every time. But here's what you can make fair. You can make your internal state fair, right? What do I mean by that? Well, here, the external world has always been unfair. It's currently unfair, and it will remain unfair for the rest of the time. I read an article today that said more and more likely the universe is 13.7 billion years old. And so for 13.7 billion years, the world has been unfair. And if it's around for another 13.7 billion years, it will still be unfair. But you can design your own interior world just like you can interior decorate your house. Let's interior decorate what the concept of fairness feels for you internally, right? So here's a case study. I've mentioned I had a rough childhood. I have PTSD as a result. I had this sense of worthlessness for most of my adult life, or as a child up until my most adult life, until about 3 years ago. So from essentially the age of 3 to 34, I had this feeling, the shadow that followed me around that would whisper in my ear, what was so wrong with me that I wasn't worthy of love? Because I had felt that if I was a better kid, then I would have gotten love that was supposed to be the love that a child got, whatever that is, right? That, man, if I would have just been a better kid, I wouldn't have been in such a rough environment. My parents would have loved me in the way that I wanted to be loved. But there must have been something wrong with me to be in this situation that I'm in. That's how I internalized it, right? And that's not helpful, unfortunately. And it's common, especially with people with trauma. But that feeling of not just being aware that sometimes there's nothing wrong with you. It just is that way. It's unfair and it's sad and it shouldn't be that way. And it's heartbreaking and it's tragic. But that's part of life. It has nothing to do with whether you were right or wrong, whether you were good or bad, whether you were worthy of love or not, right? It's just in this world, it happens. So what can we do about it, though? We can't change the world, my friend. We can't blame God. That's not going to help either, unfortunately. I tried that. Instead, you go inside. What you can do, at least, is I went inside. And I visualized those bitter moments of injustice. And I gave my child self the love he deserved. He needed a hug. I went in there and I gave him a hug. He needed somebody to talk to. I went in there and gave him somebody to talk to. I balanced the scales of fairness on the inside, not on the outside. And it was just, and it was right, and it was fair, right? And when I did this, I started showing up with more contribution everywhere. I didn't harbor these resentments that I once harbored. I had more acceptance. I was more in harmony and more in connection with the world around me. So fairness on the outside, don't count on it. But you can do fairness on the inside. And we talk about that a lot in Prosperity Algorithm, what that could look like. But I want you to consider this. Say you only spend 10 minutes a day feeling like a victim, feeling unfair. Now, by the way, that's way less than what most people experience, okay? But I think you're special because you're here. So you're not most people. So you only spend 10 minutes a day feeling like a victim. But let's math that out. The average lifespan as of now is 78 years. So that's 60 years of adulthood. So in a 60-year experience on this planet as an adult, if you quote unquote only spent 10 minutes a day feeling like a victim to unfairness, this means that by the time you're done with this life, you spent a solid 152 days of your life living as a victim. That's crazy, isn't it? That's nearly half of a year. You want to talk about unfairness? That, my friend, is unfair. You are being unfair to yourself, right? So if you're mad about the unfairness around you, you're also being unfair to yourself. So let's not be unfair to ourselves. The world is hard enough as it is. We don't have to help it. That's unfair, right? And imagine how boring life would be if it was fair. And isn't it wonderful that it isn't, right? I've discovered that it being unfair is wonderful because the alternative is worse. Now, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. We talk about imperfection and the beauty of imperfection in prosperity algorithm. It's a whole session because most people are victims of perfection and seeking perfection, right? But it's just, this is how it's set up. So now we can enjoy the fruits of life without guilt, which allows us to be much more prosperous and actually helps us the most with repairing any injustices, whether ones that have happened to us or one of those that we see in the world, okay? Don't you think some of that in your life, even if you got just a little bit of it, maybe you didn't get it perfectly when we go through the session, don't you think some of that in your life would be super helpful to you? That's just one of the 10 sessions that we have. By the way, I came up with the price point. I plan on these sessions being about 60 minutes a piece. I charge and get quite often $3,125 an hour for my time as a consultant, as a coach. So that's where I came up with this value. It's honestly way more than that. But I wanted to put something out there just to show you the value of what you're getting kind of as best as I could. So you could truly understand, at least from my perspective, I think, what a good deal you're getting. Let's finish this on luck and serendipity. I love this because this is another one of those things where the scarcity, the more scarce something becomes, the more valuable it becomes. And this type of thinking applied to prosperity is so scarce. Most people don't consider it, don't understand it, ignore it, minimize it, whatever. And it becomes a massive leverage point for us to obtain prosperity, serendipity and luck, right? Serendipity and luck. Prosperity is harder to come upon if you only focus on your personal characteristics and efforts. I used to be a fan of the saying, if it's meant to be, then it's up to me, right? I am not a fan of that saying anymore. Because see, there are things outside of your control. And if you open yourself up to those things, it can greatly enhance your prosperity. If you're only focusing on what you can do and your efforts and your characteristics and your traits and your situations, not only are you limiting the ability to tap into something more, you're also opening yourself up to disaster because you will be sideswiped by something outside of you, and then you'll be shocked. You will overestimate what you personally can accomplish if you start to achieve success early on, and that will lead to your ultimate failure, right? See, to diminish luck and to diminish chance and coincidence is to play the game of life with only some of the cards in the deck. And here's a very interesting experiment that proves the point really, really powerfully, right? They took two groups of people. Group A were the people who self-identified and said, I'm an unlucky person. And group B were the people who self-identified and considered themselves lucky. Yeah, I'm lucky, right? Group A unlucky, group B lucky. Both groups had the exact same set of instructions. They were instructed to go through a newspaper, and as they went through this newspaper, they were to count the number of photographs that they saw, right? Now, here's what's interesting about this experiment. A couple pages flipping through the newspaper, there was an ad in the newspaper, and the ad read this. It says, stop counting, there are 43 photos, right? So both groups, exact same newspaper, exact same setup. They skip through. Oh, if they noticed it, it's not a picture. It's just an ad that says, stop counting, there are 43 photos. What's funny is they could go on or they could stop right there. Some of them stopped and asked the experimenter that says, sure, what should I do? And then the experimenter was instructed to say, you can either go on or you can stop now, right? So if they did go on, a few pages after that, there was yet another ad that said, stop counting, tell the experimenter you've seen this ad, and we'll give you 150 pounds. This is done in London or in England somewhere. So that's about $200. That's a lot of money, right? So isn't this interesting? During this experiment, the unlucky groups, the lucky groups, who saw the ads, who won the money, who didn't win the money? Well, now you know the answer, but it's still fascinating nonetheless. The people who describe themselves as lucky, several times more likely to win the money. Fascinating, isn't it? On one hand, there's nothing lucky about that situation. You go through it, and if you recognize it, and if you go through a certain set of circumstances, you'll see the ad. If you don't, then you won't see the ad. It's not a coin flip. They didn't randomize the results. There is no luck. All luck was taken out of the experiment. But the people who just thought of themselves as lucky, many, many, many times more likely to make money, to win the prize, right? Now, the man who conducted this experiment, his name was Dr. Richard Wiseman, and he's worked firsthand with more people in this world than anybody else who consider themselves lucky. So he's made a study on people who go through life thinking that they're benefactors of good luck. And it's such a fascinating concept because I've read interviews with him, and there's one specifically, you can find this online. It's really funny because this reporter just refuses to believe that luck can be this factor. So he keeps pressing on Wiseman, and he says this, exasperated, he says to Wiseman, he says, but can't we acknowledge that sometimes bad stuff like car accidents and natural disasters just happens? Sometimes it's purely bad and there's nothing good about it. Can we just acknowledge that? And here's Wiseman's response. I love it. You ready for it? Here it is. Wiseman says, I have never heard that from a lucky person. I've never heard that from a lucky person, he says. See, what they've actually discovered from research in this is people that consider themselves lucky, somehow or another, it's easier for them to spot opportunity. So somehow or another, if they consider themselves lucky, they expect things that are not expected, like flipping through and continuing on, even though they can stop in that experiment. And as a result, they win more money. So here's the refinement on luck, right? First of all, this is way more than positive thinking. I know many positive thinkers who are broke and not prosperous in the least. Okay, positive thinking is a very, very simplistic, overly simplistic viewpoint to take on when it comes to prosperity. It is too limited to really unlock prosperity, right? So this is more than positive thinking, nor does this mean that the most successful people are also the luckiest, because you can be absolutely successful without luck. But here's what it does mean. It means that being more aware of the luck factor, not only can you limit the randomness of it, better still, you can actually influence it. You can allow room for it to occur. You can make more of it show up in your life. See, some people, I would say a lot of people, make no room for luck. And then they're shocked at how unlucky they are. What did you expect, right? Others minimize the power of serendipity, and they end up in hot water because they think their results are all about them. That's dangerous, right? Embracing luck unburdens you from feeling like you have to control everything or have to have influence or exertion over everything. Now, here's the reason why luck deserves a deep examination. What most people think of as good luck is actually some of the worst luck that exists. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about these big 8-figure jackpot lottery winners. I don't know what the lottery is right now. By some weird chance, somebody yesterday told me, I guess it's like there's 2 different Powerballs or 2 different lotteries in the United States right now that are both over 500 million. So $1 billion in lottery money is up for grabs right now. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't really follow that kind of stuff, but I think it's something like that, right? It's insane. Now, let me tell you about the luck of lottery winners, 8-figure lottery winners. Here's the statistics about them. This is so fascinating, right? They're 20 times more likely to be murdered. Oh, wow. Really interesting, okay? They're 17 times more likely to overdose on drugs. Wow. They're 41 times more likely to be kidnapped. And now here's the best one of all, the best one. I don't know if best is the right way to describe this, right? Here's the one that I find most interesting at all. If you win 8 figures in the lottery, you, my friend, are 20 times more likely to go bankrupt than the average person. Bankrupt. You say, Jason, how could somebody go bankrupt that has 8 figures worth of money in winning? They do. They do. This is not good luck. Winning the lottery is some of the worst luck that you could possibly have if that is all you're relying on. That's the challenge. So because people have such a misunderstanding of luck, it's such a perverted, flipped view of what luck is and what it represents. It's very scary. And so that way luck deserves a deep examination. And that's why we do it in prosperity algorithm. This is not the luck that we talk about. Now, there are ways of winning the lottery and still utilizing that and being empowering of that. But what's funny is you can do all that and obtain prosperity without a winning lottery ticket. Think about that. Now, here's a slope of prosperity. You can't control your initial position on where you start in the prosperity chart. You can't control where you start. You started wherever you started, right? You can, though, exert major influence on the slope, on the trajectory of where you go on that chart, okay? So here's something that you can do. This has been proven to work very effectively. Create a luck diary. Start writing down when you get lucky and start writing down how lucky you are. And soon you'll come to expect good luck. And that expectation of good luck will cause you to be more open to opportunity, will cause you to be more grateful, more compassionate to others. It will empower your prosperity. So let's quickly recap. Purpose, the word imprinted on your heart. That's session 1. Structure, the key to freedom, session 2. Flexibility, because inflexibility creates trauma 100% of the time. That's session 3. Persistence and how it's the key to compassion. That's session, what is that, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's session 4. Adversity, which leads the way to graceful living. That's session 5. The virtues of adversity. 6. Leverage, to turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength. 7, unfairness, to unburden yourself of guilt, anger, and the victim mentality. 8, luck, and how it can be harnessed into prosperity. 9, we didn't talk about this today, but we're doing a session on marketable expertise without having to put in 10 years or 10,000 hours. And lastly, imperfection, because beauty and ingenuity beat perfection every single time. I didn't even get the quote right. I misspelled every to very. Imperfection. Prosperity algorithm, 10 sessions over 2 weeks. They're done live here on Zoom. They're recorded. They're placed into a members area that you get access to, and you can log in and reference it, download it, and utilize the prosperity algorithm however you want. It starts on January 18th. That's Monday. If you're here with me live right now, it's Thursday. The clock is ticking. We got some time to make a decision, but not a whole lot of time. So we're going to run these sessions through. This will be done by January 29th, and you'll have a full-on access to all these sessions whenever you wish to log in and access the members area for as long as the members area exists. Prosperity algorithm, last chance to get in at $199. Now, I went longer today than I anticipated. But when I get going, I get going. So I noticed now that it's we've been here about an hour and 40-ish sort of minutes from when we officially began. Ran through 10 sessions or 8 of the 10 sessions of taste. Usually what we like to do is circle in and get some questions. Well, I don't know, because of the different nature of this style of webinar, where we go from here. Is there some things that we need to address, clarify, talk about, help, debunk, or whatever the case may be?
All right, Jason. So I don't see a whole lot of questions per se. I see a whole lot of comments and feedback, and they are all amazing. We will ask folks now if they have any questions. If you go ahead and place questions in the chat box, go ahead and ask your questions, and then I'll field them and feed them to Jason. Jason, I do want to make one small correction on something you said. The training does indeed start on January 18th. The offer for $199, however, does not close on Sunday. It closes on Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. Pacific. So
cool.
They do have until Tuesday. I don't recommend that they wait until Tuesday, because I would like everybody to be there in the live session. But if you can't make it, or for whatever reason you're watching this replay and it's already Monday or it's already Tuesday morning, it's okay. You can still sign up at $199 until Tuesday night. If you're watching this replay after Tuesday, January 19th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, you can still join Prosperity Algorithm, but you'll be paying a higher price than $199. So I just wanted to clarify those things, Jason.
Okay,
Again,
cool.
we do highly recommend that folks join as quickly as possible so they can take advantage of the live sessions where they can ask you questions and participate and feel the energy, because there's a lot of power in feeling that live energy, isn't there?
Yeah, one of the things I like to do in the sessions when we do them live is stress test the material. Um, I am a big believer in being a personification of what you teach. And so I know I can take what I show you and have you bring a challenge to me or an issue with it and solve it in real time, or apply the model or the training to it right there on the fly. It's a rarity in this business. Most people can only do that if they're prepared in advance and everything's scripted, right? And so I want people to bring their considerations for purpose and have me take a look at them, and we can stress test them and have them say, listen, you said this, Jason, and I need clarity over here. How does this match with that? And work through it in real time. I'll apply every model that I taught you today. Everything I showed you, I will be able to apply on the fly in the situations. And I know what tools to use and when to use them. So that's one of the powers of being there live. Now, is that everything? No, not everything, right? And just to be clear, you will not get the full benefit of these 10 sessions by going through them once. It's a lifetime of material here, right? They're not meant to be understood and immediately applied in totality upon the first interaction. The way they are designed is to get 1% more out of it each time that you consume it. It's just what's fascinating is for most people, there are some significant switches where 1% is a total game changer in their life. And I am 100% confident that there is something in here for everybody that will be an immediate, huge level up. I am absolutely confident of that. And that's why I do not bat an eye or break a sweat. And that's why my voice doesn't quaver one bit when I say it's $199. That is how absolutely confident that I am about this. Because, and I'll tell you one of the places it comes from. There have been so many times in my life where I had some sort of bug in my operating system. Let's use that metaphor, right? My processor, my brain, the way I looked at the world, when that was debugged, right? When we did a software upgrade to it, completely changed how I interacted in the world. It was a light switch. Some things take a lot of time and effort to change, especially habits. But there are certain things, all of us right now have a certain set of buttons that if they're pushed once, it automatically creates something new and wonderful that sticks. A paradigm shift, if you will. It's generally what they're called, right? And this training is dripping in paradigm shifts. And there's one of them for you. I know that to be true. And then what's great about that is you keep coming back and peeling the onion, which is not a great metaphor for the training. I don't want to compare it to an onion, but if there's layers upon layers, the layers have layers. And I think you're going to find that in Prosperity Algorithm. It is a lifetime of work condensed down into 10 sessions.
Awesome.
And one other thing too on that too, Will, is why now? Well, look at the world. On one hand, the world is always this crazy, believe it or not. You know, COVID brings it home and really shines a light underneath a lot of the chaos and uncertainty that are in this world. But it's always there. It's always there, right? And so generally, Will and I, we stick to training business people business things, breaking down marketing processes and business focused technical issues, stuff like that, right? We don't venture into the headspace territory and the heart centers territory very often as a teaching model. I employ it in my way of life on a daily basis, and I utilize this to help clients one-on-one through the lens of business usually, right? But it's needed right now. I feel compelled and I feel called. It's weird to say that, but that's how I feel about this, to share this with the world, because of the chaos that everybody's wrapping themselves up in. Right now, everything that's a mental issue has gotten worse due to COVID. Depression has gone up, suicide rates have gone up, anxiety has gone up, addiction has gone up, spousal abuse has gone up, right? And I really feel it. And I'm like, what can I do about it? Well, I'm going to put this out there and let's see if this can help at all. And everything that I speak of, I've had to experience firsthand. I know the pains of lack of not having these things very intimately and very deeply. And I've been on the other side, and I know the joys of having this prosperity. So I have a wide depth of material to draw on and channel through. And I'm humble enough to be able to study the greats and try to understand their perspectives and then drill them down and help put them within the model of prosperity, because none of us can do this on our own. We need each other. We have to be connected. Otherwise, prosperity cannot manifest itself.
If you have questions about the time of the sessions, every session will take place at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That is Los Angeles time, 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, starting June 18th, and then continuing Monday through Friday, June 25th for another 5 days. January, correct. January. So two weeks, Monday through Friday, starting on January 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. The sessions are planned for approximately 1 hour. Jason often tends to go a little bit longer. And here's the reality. He will go until he has delivered the entire message he has to deliver for the session. So if we tell you it's 1 hour and it goes for 3.5, great. What a wonderful thing, because he shared 2.5 more hours than the planned content he was going to share. I know several of you are trying to plan. I would plan for 90 minutes to be safe. And if it goes beyond that and you have to drop off the session, that's okay, because you're going to have access to the recordings and you can always catch the recordings later. I also recommend, having worked with Jason for well over a decade now, that you allow yourself time past the session. So if the session is planned for 90 minutes, put an extra hour, an hour and a half in your calendar afterwards, because that time to reflect on what you just learned and take your notes and consolidate your notes and do the homework that he may assign you, that is the prime time to do it. So if you are able to, and it's okay if you can't, but if you're able to, block time right after the session, while you're immersed in the information and while you have that energy of the session within you to do the work right away, you're going to benefit tremendously if you're able to do that. So just block some of that time right after the webinar. Yeah. And let me tell you, what Jason just said is absolutely, it couldn't be more true. You have to watch this training several times. You have to watch it several times because, well, you don't have to. Let me not speak in absolutes, right, Jason?
Yeah, you don't have to do anything, honestly.
You're encouraged to watch the recordings more than once. And specific sessions, you may want to watch 3 or 4 or 5 times, because I guarantee you that you will get tremendous value each and every time. There are people on this webinar, Jason, that watched this presentation back in December, and multiple people are saying, wow, I'm so glad I came again. Yep. Because I've gotten much more value this time around. And the slides and the presentation are very, very similar. Yep. But they're in a different state of mind now. They've accrued additional experiences in their lives since December. And now they were open to receiving more information. And this is what's going to happen when you watch these trainings over and over. So the value is not just in the live training. The value is in the access that you're going to have to the training on an ongoing basis in the members area, so that you can watch it over and over and over again.
Yep, there's that saying that nobody steps in the same river twice, because you've changed and so is the river, right? And all of us are at different stages in our life right now, but my goal is to distill for you out of the millions and millions of pieces of information, data to reflect on, what really matters? What's that vital few pieces of input that get you the majority of output in your life? I'm the channeler, so you don't have to go out there on your own and dig under every nook and cranny in order to figure this out, right? Channel it through me, and I will give you the conclusions, and I will do it through introspection. I will give you things to uncover within yourself. And that's what all these sessions are designed. Let me be very clear. You're not supposed to be able to attend all 10 sessions live in 2 weeks, right? That is a bare minimum 20-hour commitment on your part. And it would be foolish of me to think that none of you have a life outside of me, right? You do what you can, okay? Because the purpose isn't to cram for the prosperity final exam 2 weeks from now. It gives you the opportunity to take it in as you wish to. I give you a massive discount in exchange for this fire hose approach to prosperity. So that way I can manifest it and deliver it as quickly as I possibly can get it out into the world, because it's killing me to keep it inside of me. So this is kind of our agreement of how we're going to run through this thing. The real value, though, is in the lifetime experiences that you can draw from this. And of that, again, there will be needle movers, simple phrases, ideas, concepts, alternative viewpoints that I will provide to you that you've never heard before, that will completely revolutionize some aspect of your life the moment you hear them, right? The paradigm shifts in here, they will be found and they will impact you positively. Of that, I am absolutely certain. And some of you have already experienced them just from the free training. That was my goal, right? Give you a taste, try to condense what I could out of all the totality of prosperity algorithm into one single free session, so you knew what you were dealing with, right? And then this allows us to, if you sign up, to let it breathe and not be so frantic, I guess is a word you could use, to go through the material, because we'll have more space and more time and more purposefulness in which to observe these sessions. And that's just the first experience, and then we'll go back through them again. But yeah, this is what we have here, the 10 sessions. I've been working through them personally, developing them myself, and my life has been tremendously better just as I've formalized what I know to be true myself over the last couple of weeks in the last month or so since I've been working on this. But yeah, I will try to keep the material down to an hour in the formal material, and then my just so you know, my perspective on life, or my, what do you call it, just my being, how I operate in life. If I have people on and they seem to be eager and interested and they want to know more, it's very hard for me to stop. I get very excited to be part of that. So generally, if you do show up and we're out of formal material and you're captivated and you're eager and sincere, I generally go on longer than that, right? Doesn't mean you need to be there. Doesn't mean that you're going to miss some sort of treasured moment or whatever the case may be. But I just like to be of service. That's a big part of my purpose in my life, is to be of service. And that's where that personifies itself.
Awesome. Jason, I do not believe that we have any other questions. I've been watching just the comments. There are a lot of comments, a lot of thank yous, a lot of aha moments that are being shared. But as far as questions, I believe the opportunity is very clear. And a lot of people have already signed up and they're saying, thank you, see you Monday, excited to get started and looking forward to starting it.
Yeah.
Just, folks here see the value in what you shared. Let me put it that way. That
makes me very happy.
You have accomplished your purpose masterfully today, my friend.
That makes me very happy.
So with that, I suggest that we close the webinar with any parting thoughts. Sorry, parting thoughts from you.
Yeah. So let me end it like this. First of all, I want to acknowledge you and I want to honor you for being here today. There's many places in the world you could have been instead, and I know how valuable and precious our time and our focus is. And so for you to choose to spend that with us here is a great honor. And I am fortunate to be able to be of service to you in that situation. And I'm glad that it seems like there was some really powerful connection for us to. So I want to acknowledge and honor that. And I also just want to leave you with this parting thought too, in terms of whether you're in or not in the prosperity algorithm, what's more important to me than you signing up or your money or your commitment to the course is your commitment to prosperity, period, right? So it's less important to me that you become a customer. It's more important to me that you adopt and adapt as it makes sense to you the lessons that we were able to share here today. Because here's what I know about hate. The only way that you can stop hate, and it seems like there's a lot of hate right now, and hate on the outside first manifests on the inside, right? There's only one way you can stop hate, and it's not with more hate. It's with love. The only way that you can respond to hate in any way that's healthy is with love. But it's also one of the hardest things in the world to do. It's got to be something that you approach with purpose and mindfulness. And prosperity is at the heart of that. And I believe that if we can adopt and adapt more of that type of inner prosperity, then the outer world generally will take care of itself. It'll be better as a result of that. And that's my desire for you and for me and for our children and our children's children and for the strangers that we'll never even meet. That's what I want to see out there. This is why we do this. I need your help in order to do this. And that would make me the happiest if you go out there and personify a little bit more of these concepts that resonated with you. And so we can have love where there's hate. Maybe right now, maybe there's more love that shows up. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. I appreciate you, and I'll talk with you soon.